Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel Happy Hour. My name is Alexandra Tejeda, and on this channel we talk about self-love, self-worth, and self-development. So today I'll be reviewing the book Becoming by Michelle Obama. This one right here, okay? I read it last month, and I do have a book club on my Instagram, okay? So next month we'll be reading a new book, and I'll pop down my Instagram below so you can follow me there if you want to read along. This one I read last month, and it was so good, and I was really looking forward to it, so I'm so happy that I read it. I took like a bunch of notes throughout the whole thing, and yeah, just really soaked everything up. So I will kind of be giving like the Cole's Note version of the things that I've read, and yeah, just my review of the book because I loved it, and I knew I would love it, but I really loved it. It was amazing, honestly, and it's just about her. She was the First Lady of the United States, and it's just about how she grew up, how she started her career, how she met Barack Obama, and then how they got together and how she did things in the White House as well. Like the initiatives that she did and the things that she stood for. I have some notes with me here too, so I might be like glancing at them, but yeah. There are 3 parts in the book, and that's becoming me, becoming us, and becoming more. And yeah, I really love how that was set up as well because it just kind of made things a little bit simpler with the timeline. So Becoming Me was all about how she grew up on the south side of Chicago with her family and her parents and her brother, and how they really encouraged education, and how her parents really gave them direction, but also kind of let them be themselves and really enforce like respect and trust throughout the household. But yeah, there are some quotes from the book that really stood out to me about how she was raised and how her parents parented. So one of them was, the parents want to get them a dictionary, and they had to read like the dictionary and find new words to speak every single day to really broaden their vocabulary. And Michelle Obama's talking about her parents, saying the idea was we were to transcend, to get ourselves further. They planned for it. They'd encouraged it. We were expected not just to be smart, but to own our smartness, to inhabit it with pride. And this filtered down to how we spoke. And yeah, you can see that through the book as well. It's really prevalent that she is always using like really big words and has a really great way of describing the things that went on in her life. And that probably goes all the way back to them really challenging her and making her read the dictionary and figure out new words to express herself. It's good if you're able to speak professionally and you don't sound like illiterate. Like I feel like when people swear a lot, they sound like uneducated, and that's something I do sometimes is I tend to swear. And after reading this book, it really wanted me to get a little bit better with my vocabulary. So I think that was really important that her parents enforced that at an early age. And then the thing that really stuck out to me about her parents, like this one just stuck out to me. There's 2 things in the whole book that stuck out to me, along with like some little notes here and there, but this one changed my view on a lot of things. And it said that we're not raising babies, we're raising adults. And that like changed my complete view. It is so true. And I never really thought about that. Like, I don't know. Again, I don't have kids, but I have siblings and stuff like that. But it is true. You're setting up these children for success later in life. So if you let them sleep in all day, or you let them swear, or you let them play video games or stuff like that, you're not really pushing them past their limits, and you're not helping them be the best that they can be. So you're raising adults and not children. Blew my mind. And through this time that she's growing up, she's starting to talk about how Southside is kind of changing around her, and how her parents didn't want to leave. They knew that was their community and their home, so they wanted to stay. But she's talking about like a lot of the people leaving there and going to the suburbs because they knew that it was starting to get ghetto. And she refers to ghetto as this ghetto mentality, like of the way that her neighborhood was now changing and how people were getting scared, is that she says failure is a feeling long before it becomes an actual result. It's a vulnerability that breeds with self-doubt and then is escalated, often deliberately, by fear. And I was like, damn. And all those feelings there really stand out to me with failure in general, without looking at it as a neighborhood, that failure is something that you're kind of told at a young age. If this is your upbringing, if you're told it over and over and over again, then you're going to be expected to fail. So it's just funny that she said that failure is a feeling long before it actually becomes something, like an actual failure, because it's been there for so long. So it maybe, yeah, I took it out of the context of the neighborhood. I've never lived in any ghetto, but yeah, I could see what she's saying about the neighborhood and just also applying it to my own life, because it's crazy. Like, it is a feeling before it's actually prevalent in your life. And then she continues to grow up in her community, and she starts going to like a more gifted school for gifted people. And she talks about doubting herself, which is so funny that you see like this confident woman and you don't ever think that they've ever doubted themselves, that they've just always been confident. And it was nice to hear that she's had those struggles as well. It just made her a little bit more human and made me feel a little bit better about my own struggles. So she says that she's going to this new school and she keeps thinking that she's not enough. She's not enough. And it was doubt about where I came from and what I believed about myself until now. It was like a malignant cell. So it was like a cell that threatened to divide and divide again unless I could find a way to stop it. And I love that quote because, yeah, I don't know, I'm into nutrition and science and stuff, so I know, like, you know, cells, obviously they divide and they're small, and over time they can get bigger and bigger and bigger and create tumors. And I think that is just crazy. It's just the way that she wrote things was really, like, it gave you a great visual. So yeah, I love that line as well, that she really had to nip this in the bud, like stop telling herself that she wasn't enough, or else it was gonna divide and take over her whole life. And yeah, so now she's gone through this gifted school and she started looking at colleges, and she's talking to counselors about colleges, and this counselor basically tells her that she's not Princeton material and that's where she wants to go. And she says, again, that failure is a feeling long before it's an actual result, which, wow. And she talks again, and for me, it felt like that's exactly what she was planting, the counselor, a suggestion of failure long before I'd even tried to succeed. She was telling me to lower my sights, which was the absolute reverse of every last thing my parents had ever told me. But if that was something that your parents had told you and she didn't grow up with those strong parents, then that's probably something that she would believe about herself. So it's just crazy the amount of impact that someone else's words can have over you. And I think that was, I just freaking love that line. I don't know, failure is a feeling long before it's an actual result. Like, what you believe is so important. And then she makes it to Princeton, of course, and then later on goes to Harvard. But in this time, she's still getting used to everything. And she talks about not really fitting in, but she makes her way through school, obviously. She comes out of Harvard being a lawyer at 25. So that's obviously a huge accomplishment. But she still talks about having those same fears and worries, that she doesn't really know who she is. She's still a box checker. Sometimes she calls herself that, and that's something that I can relate to, is that she loves to check things off a box. She cares a lot about what other people think about her. And again, she has her own journal, and she gives us a snippet from that journal at that time that says, 1, I feel very confused about where I want my life to go. What kind of person do I want to be? How do I want to contribute to the world? And I just think that's crazy. Again, I don't know, I view her as such a confident, beautiful woman, and what she is, but it's just, I never see people like that have these same concerns that I do. And then we move on to Becoming Us, where she meets Barack at the law firm that they both work at. Yeah, both very educated, both very smart, and both a little bit lighthearted, and they meet and really hit it off, but she really doesn't want to be professional in the job that she's at, but they end up just falling in love. But she does go with him to see him talk at a couple communities, because he's already he's very smart and he has a lot of opportunities at hand, but he really wants to work with communities and make a difference. And just little things that she says in the book, that just, oh my God, just the way that she writes, I just love it. But anyway, he's talking to these people and they're kind of cynical, because like, who is this guy coming into our community talking so positively, you know, when we've had so many years of disappointment. And so she says here that she could tell their cynicism was bred from 1,000 small disappointments over time. And I really think that's where cynicism is bred from, is 1,000 disappointments over time. And these people now, to see any hope or optimism is like so hard for them. So I just love that line. And then Barack is still talking, and he's saying that you can give up or you can work for change. And those are like the only 2 options that you can really choose from. And I love that line as well. You give up or you work for change. There's no in between. And as she's falling more in love with him, she talks about really rooting herself and anchoring herself on her 2 feet, which I think is really important as well, that when you feel that free fall, it's easy to lose sight of yourself. So it was really nice that she said that I need to quickly anchor myself on my 2 feet. Because I think that's important, to separate yourself from that other person's life and really do things for yourself. And as their relationship progresses, she starts to not want to be a lawyer anymore, and she wants to move to City Hall, something that just involves a little bit more face-to-face time with people and not just sitting on a desk and doing, I don't know, whatever lawyers do. So she decides to move professions, and she's very nervous about that. She got a lot of her motivation from Barack. So she says Barack believed and trusted when others did not. He had a simple faith that if you stuck to your principles, things would work out. And he even said, the unknown isn't going to kill you. So yeah, he just really stuck by her side. And he had a little bit more of a faithful mindset than she did, which was a little bit more narrow-minded, but together they balance each other out. And then as both of their careers are progressing, they have children. So they have their first child, and she always talks about wanting to keep her children upright and forward moving. And I love that line as well, because it's just really simple and powerful. They even talk about the struggles that they have in their marriage. So the fact that they have to go to counseling as well. And just in the counseling, another powerful word, she's talking about going to counseling and, how they got over the humps in their marriage, and how the counselor was helping them separate their weapons from their wounds. And I love that line. Her lines are just like, I can see them. They're descriptive. They're amazing. Separating your weapons from your wounds. And that's so true. Like, usually when you're hurting somebody else is because you have your own wound that you have to deal with. So love that line. And at this point in time, Barack is starting to get a little bit more serious about politics and really look at politics being a career, running for president. And she has always been cynical about politics, and she's not afraid to say that in the book, which I really appreciate. And she talks about that politics in the past has been against Black folks as a means to keep us isolated and excluded, leaving us undereducated, underemployed, and underpaid. And I love that she's open and honest about that and talks about kind of the climate in the United States and how she views politics as a Black woman. But at this time, he's not president yet, and they're not crazy rich yet. You know, they're well off, but they still need some extra income, especially now with 2 daughters. She talks about Barack at this time, who wants to write a book basically to make money. And he has no idea that he'll make money. He just is like, oh, I'll write a book and I'll make money. And she finds this funny because it's just like, it just goes to show like how much faith he has in the universe. And she teases him, saying he trades his family's livelihood for a handful of magical beans, believing his whole heart that they will yield something even if no one else does. So she's talking about his book coming to fruition. Like, you don't even know if you're going to get rich off this, but you just believe so much and you're going to plant these seeds and see what happens. But just as his book gets released, he also starts getting more into the limelight, and he does a speech, and that really blows him up. And a lot of people say that he was an overnight success. And I like this line in the book too, because she says that he had spent years working on that moment on stage, you know, but it's funny that people see it as an overnight success. So that also just gives me hope that you can work years and years and years and years and still be seen as an overnight success when really so much time and effort went into it. And then she addresses the magic beans, and she says that because of that speech, the royalty money that started coming in, the renewed sales of the book that was already out, the fact that he now had a generous offer on his second book, the surprise harvest of Barack's magic beans. And that like gives me goosebumps because like he didn't know this was going to come to fruition. He just fully believed in it, and there you go. It was even more than he could expect because now they wanted a second book and there was royalties coming in on that first book. So nuts. That's what faith and belief can get for you. And as this campaign starts to continue on, Michelle gets a little bit more open with politics and really does want to contribute and give back. But it does take her a little bit of time to kind of turn around to the fact of it. But when Katrina happens, she starts to ask herself these 3 questions. Who were we? What mattered to us? And what could we do? She really starts to think about the initiatives that she could take on if she were to get into the White House. And then as he starts to run, she talks about her family now being completely under the limelight and how different that was for her to adjust to. She talks about haters, people coming in and really bullying her and talking about stupid stuff that didn't even matter compared to how big of the topics that she was talking about. Yeah, it was really annoying to have her have such amazing, great speeches and then come off the stage and then the reporters ask, oh, what are you wearing tonight? Or making comments about her hip size or stuff like that, which was so irrelevant to the topics, but it's just frustrating being a woman that everything you say kind of gets sidestepped based on how you look. And how Barack would have a similar speech, very powerful and moving, and then come off and people would talk to him about actual topics and address actual things that are going on. So what's crazy for me to see and witness in this book. And yeah, just referring to them not taking her seriously or taking her too seriously. She just talks about this and it's just amazing. I was female, Black, and strong, which to certain people maintaining a certain mindset translated only to angry. It was another damaging cliche, one that's been forever used to sweep minority women to the perimeter of every room. An unconscious signal not to listen to what we've got to say. And again, goosebumps, like, man, it's so easy to dismiss what someone has to say and that like really wears you down. And she's saying like, I'm gonna be louder, I'm gonna be stronger. Like, you don't want to listen to me and you're seeing that as like I'm like a scolding woman when really I just have a point that I want to get across to you. And it's just funny how, yeah, I'm just completely swept to the side. And I love how she continues to stand up for herself. And then she talks about them waiting for the results now of the campaign, if he's going to become president or not. And she's talking about the waiting period and she says, you've leaped, but you haven't landed. Again, just love that line. You've leaped, but you haven't landed. That's like it's relevant to a lot of things in life where you've done something, but you haven't landed yet. You don't know where it's going to go. And it's just powerful. I don't know. That you put a lot of work and effort to something, but you don't know where you're going to land yet. So that was the waiting period for them to see if he was going to become president or not, which obviously he did. And as soon as they get into the White House, they really talk about how ethical they were and how they really want to put their children first and their family first and treat everyone in the White House with respect. And I just like the line here, that they hold themselves to a higher standards of ethics. Because we're the first Black first lady and Black president to come into the White House. So they have a line here saying that you've got to be twice as good to get half as far. Being a minority. So I think that is just crazy. So they talk about using their own money for decorating the White House when a lot of people would have used like taxpayers' money, that kind of thing. And yeah, they're just really doing everything so respectfully and so ethically. And with that line, we obviously move on to becoming more. So this is now they've won the campaign and they move into the White House. So they are becoming more together. They're now First Lady and the President. And she just talks about raising her daughters in the White House as well, and how she wanted them to cook some of their own meals and do some of their own laundry and not become like complacent or used to this lifestyle, because it's not something that she had growing up. She wanted them to be appreciative of everything that they had. But I did like this line here. She just said, as a kid, you learn to measure long before you understand the size or value of anything. Eventually, if you're lucky, you learn that you've been measuring all wrong. And I just love that line because it's true. As a kid, you always see, oh, this kid has more, this kid has a cooler toy, something like that. But then when you grow up, you realize the value in things rather than the quantity of things. And I just love that she is kind of finding her footing as a first lady. So now she doesn't really have a job title. She doesn't have anything that she needs to do technically, but she wants to figure it out for herself to see any initiatives that she wants to work for. But at this point, she's still questioning her purpose, or not her purpose, but like what she's there to do. And I think that is crazy. Like, I just like that reminder that you're constantly growing and constantly going to be asking yourself questions. So you're not going to land at any destination. It's nice to know that even the First Lady of the United States, with an amazing background, education, all these things, still questions herself and what she's doing in that role. So I think that's really important that she keeps reiterating to you. And she talks about like feeling like a swan on a lake, knowing that my job was in part to glide and appear serene, because the First Lady, you have to sit there, smile, wave. Well, underwater, I never stopped pedaling my legs. And I love that metaphor. Like, I don't know, it's kind of like a woman as well. You have to appear like you have it all together. But under the surface, you're working and dealing with a bunch of different things. And this could be for anybody as well. But yeah, you're kind of appearing to be one thing and working on a bunch of different things under the surface. And I love that line. I love all the lines, let's be real. And then she just talks about really settling into their role. They were real leaders of the United States, So she says that we had to model reason, compassion, and consistency. She learned that grief and resilience live together. And I love that quote. I'm gonna stop saying line. And she talks about going to see like military families and stuff like that, people who are down but still hopeful and resilient. And I think that is amazing that those two things can work side by side. And so her initiatives were mostly to get kids up and moving, to help with like childhood obesity, stuff like that. So she did a lot of work with that. But she also went and talked at schools and really wanted to promote women educating themselves. And she also talked about minorities educating themselves. And that was kind of her key out of her situation. And she addresses some of the things that went on when they were in office. So she talks about Sandy Hook Elementary, which if I talk about too long, I will cry, because that was like the worst story that I ever saw come from the States. And yeah, it still gives me goosebumps. But she says they had to look rather than look away to stay upright when the rest of us felt ready to fall down. I put a little star beside and I said leader. Like it just, they never enforced their power on anybody. They just stood up when the nation was ready to fall down, or they were there to kind of keep them going and keep them motivated. And I just think that that is such a great leader quality. So I love that. And I love that she doesn't sugarcoat anything, and she's real about the stuff that happened when they were in office and how hard it was for her to deal with as well. And she just says in life that there are definitely steps backwards, and sometimes you don't have a reason as to why. So yeah, and that was after that whole incident happened. So it was great that she didn't sugarcoat anything. She really talked about it. She wanted to really resonate and send out the message of you matter to children all around the US. And she wanted to pass those words on to a new generation. And she said that when she was saying this at schools, that it really showed in the performances, in the test performances and the overall scores of the students, that they actually went up from things like a C moving to an A. And she says that it really affirmed the idea for her that kids will invest more when they feel they're being invested in. And yeah, I just think that's really powerful as well. So she really wanted to spread that idea to kids so that they would feel more powerful themselves. And yeah, she went to a lot of places that other first ladies probably wouldn't go, which I really respected. Like a lot of people called her in, and she even says, like, sorry Harvard, sorry Yale that I never came and talked at your schools. But she talked at schools that were more predominantly black students or more predominantly minorities or didn't have like an Ivy League school status. So she went and talked to those places and really preached power into those people. So, and she went into Ghettos, and she says here, Ghettos signaled that a place was both black and hopeless. It was a label that foretold failure and then hastened its arrival. That's kind of the neighborhoods that she was going in and really speaking power into. And as their campaign starts to wrap up, as their time in office starts to wrap up, they have now had 8 years. So I didn't know, but they are the 11th family in the White House to get reelected. I don't really know how it works in the States, but yeah, to get reelected for a second running. But yeah, they were the 11th family and they were the 44th family in the whole White House. So that's amazing that they got elected twice to be in the White House. But she talks about, as they're kind of wrapping up in the White House, she's a little bit more self-reflecting and stuff like that. And she just talks about how vision was really important to her, which is something that's important to me. So she says, you got somewhere by building that better reality, if at first only in your own mind. Whew! If you can't physically build something into your reality, then you can start by daydreaming, envisioning it and thinking about it in your own mind. And that will come to fruition with some action, but I love that line. If at first, not only in your own mind. And then she talks about Donald Trump coming into the presidential election and her seeing that whole thing take place and getting a little bit frustrated with it. And this was my second favorite line in the whole book. And this one made me cry multiple times. It's just insane to me, but it's fine. And it's powerful. And she says, I'd watched Donald Trump stalk Hillary Clinton during a debate, following her around as she spoke, standing too close, trying to diminish her presence with his. The statement was, I can hurt you and get away with it. Women endure entire lifetimes of these indignities in the form of catcalls, groping, assault, oppression. These things injure us. They sap our strength. Some of the cuts are so small that they're barely visible. Others are huge and gaping, leaving scars that never heal. Either way, they accumulate. We carry them everywhere, to and from school and work, at home while raising our children, at our places of worship, anytime we try to advance. And yeah, I bawled my eyes out. I just love that whole piece there. It's so powerful. It really just talks about like our strengths as women getting diminished, even her as a first lady, having such amazing things to say, and then them commenting on what she's wearing or the size of her hips. Donald Trump stalking Hillary Clinton on the stage during those debates really just asserts his dominance and just diminishes what us as women can do. And then when she talks about in the form of catcalls, groping, assault, oppression, and it's like all the things that us women have to go through, and the men doing those things don't have any sense, or they don't care about who we are as a person, but what we look like, what our bodies look like, or doing something for their own pleasure. So it's just insane to me. I just love that whole line there that, yeah, she was not having it in any way, that it was taken away from what Hillary Clinton was trying to do. And it's something that us women have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And it's just frustrating when you're not looked at as who you are, but as a way to make someone else feel good. That line made me a feminist right there if I wasn't already, so woo. And the last thing she talks about is just what becoming means for her. So she says, it isn't about arriving somewhere or achieving a certain aim. I see it instead as a forward motion, a means of evolving, a way to reach continuously toward a better self. The journey doesn't end. It's all a process, steps along a path. Becoming requires equal parts patience and rigor. Becoming is never giving up on the idea that there's more growing to be done. Then she goes on to basically talk about being optimistic and how she saw that throughout her whole life with her mom staying in the South Side, even though it was becoming a ghetto. She rooted herself there and she was optimistic that nobody would get hurt. She was talking about Barack being optimistic in his wanting to run for presidency. And she talks about serving others and how she wanted to give a voice to the voiceless. And she wanted to share her story to make other people feel comfortable. So yeah, I loved this book. I cried, I laughed, I smiled, I hugged it at night, okay? I loved this book. So if you get a chance, definitely read it. I just wanted to give you like the quick Cole's Notes version, but there's way more to take away from this book. Yeah, it was amazing. I love her. I love you. And yeah, I have nothing else to say. So yeah, if you don't already, follow me on Instagram because I do have a little book club. I like to read a new book every month. So next month, I am reading Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Okay, I'm super excited to read this. I need a good financial book because gotta get my finances in order. Okay, so follow me on Insta and we can read it together. Okay, so this is my book for the month of May and then we'll pick a new one for June. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and for being a part of my channel. I hope you enjoyed the book review. If you read the book, definitely let me know what you've thought down below. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And I will have new videos coming out this week and next week. So yeah, definitely don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, okay? So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and for being a part of my channel. And I will see you soon in the next video.